When I was first coming up in martial arts, I started out in Taekwondo and Hapkido. In that school, the instructor was a praying mantis instructor as well. Didn't teach the hand form side of it, but did teach the weapons. He taught us staff, saber, resection, and spear. Supposed to teach saber broadswords, never learned it. One of the things I noticed about when we were training there, we did so much basics that when I went on to study Wushu, Honga, and study with Chantai-san, I had my basics down. It wasn't something that needed to be reintroduced, taught, forced to do. I already had those basics. So I'm going to take you through the basics the way I learned them. And I'm going to do them in this side angle. So now I'm going to bring the sword up. And this is supposed to be part of, like, if I were carrying the blade across my back and I were to get it out, I would have to bring that sword up and out. It's very hard to get out of the scabbard. So in the practice, we bring the sword up. We then grab the sword with this hand, bring the other hand on the inside, step back. And that blade should come back to here. It should be right in front of the thigh. Left palm out. That's your measure. So if I want to block, I would use a sword, and I would use the dull side of the sword. And I would bring it up here, and I would support it with my elbow. I would then step out, grab the other person's weapon if I could. Bring it up, raise it, and as I bring this, I swirl around my neck until I get to my opponent. As I pass my opponent, I turn the blade. So I whip it. If I can get a cut going to the front here, great. If not, I definitely want to cut behind me. And I want to cover my back all the time because I don't know who could be coming up behind me. So I want to make sure that sword does this. So again, I was here, I brought it up, brought the hand on the inside, and I stepped back. Bring the sword up, I block, I reach out and I grab. Bring it up and I cut the belly, then over. Another cut, another block would be a high block here, using this, but this is on a roof angle. I don't like they do in Filipino. And then from here I could go right into a cut. An X cut downward, X cut downward. Again, here's a block, stepping through, cut. And again, as soon as I pass my opponent, I turn that sword. Same thing here. And I bring it back. Stabbing. So again, I can take a full step through on a stab. I want to make sure that that wrist lines up, and I don't have the sword this way. I actually bring the sword from under and in. And I can rip it back if I want to. Or I can turn the sword. So I should be able to, from here, turn the sword inward or turn the sword outward. So I should be able to block or cut the arm. Okay. Basics on the wrist. One of the things you need is a flexible wrist. Very difficult to do these spins or any movements if you're holding the sword so tightly. You want to hold with these two. You want to keep these three fingers so that you can actually increase speed at which the sword is going. If you see that slowly, I kind of keep my hand relatively open. On the downward, same thing if I'm doing the upward figure eight. Very relaxed. And I should be able to go from one into the other. There is a transition where I turn my waist and I stick that sword under my arm and I go to the other side. This is a flourish. Used to keep people back. You would flourish and then go into a movement. That's the way I have it in all my routines. That's the way it would be used. So right now we've covered blocking, grabbing, cutting here, blocking, slashing, X pattern, and coming back. We've done stab, done step through stab. We know that we can rip up from there, right? We also said that from either a stabbing position or an out position, we can always cut back, and we can block. Whether it's blocking downward, blocking this way, blocking this way. Those are basic patterns. The X pattern, whether we're doing it to the front on a downward right? Or we could even do it with the tucking behind. All right, and we have the upward figure eight. So again, I'm keeping 2 fingers on tightly, and then as I move the sword, I use my other fingers to give it some strength. So I should be able to do my upward figure eight and bring it up and over to the other side and be able to alternate between the two. So basics with the sword.